What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we have another busy day. I'm actually about to head to Baytown today, which is about an hour drive from my house. It's gonna be a very long day, but we're going to check on two flip properties. One that we are actually selling in 2 days. We're finishing up on the repairs, so I just need to go check on the progress, make sure everything is good so that we hit our deadline of closing in 2 days. And then after that, I'm going to check on another flip, which is like 10 minutes away. It's a house that we bought like a month and a half ago, but we had to do an eviction. It's a whole thing. I'm gonna talk to you guys about it and what we were able to do to get her out of the home and just all that situation. But we got to hit the road, guys. Let's get it moving. All right, we actually had to make a quick pit stop. This is a property. I don't know if you guys remember this house. I showed it in a couple videos ago. So this was a house that came to me through social media, and initially I made a cash offer, and you know, it was just too low for their situation. But I was like, hey, we could do a novation. I could list the property for you. Like, I give sellers so many options. So based on their timeline and everything, he was like, hey, if we can list it and get it sold quickly, I'd really like to do that option. And I was like, yeah, for sure. Like, let's list it just a little bit under. We'll create a competitive advantage and we'll get it sold. So what do you know? We list the property on the MLS, and within 3 days we have multiple at asking price offers. So we went with the best one that could close the soonest, and the buyer was pre-qualified. They had been looking for a while, so they were able to close in 3 weeks, which is crazy. It usually takes about 30 days, but because they had everything ready, we went through inspections. The house had been remodeled a couple years ago, so there was literally like one small leak. The seller is a plumber, so it didn't cost anything to fix it. And so yeah, we picked up a new listing for the team. So this is just a reminder, if you guys have properties in Houston, like, I'm not just an investor, I'm a realtor. My partner, she's a realtor. We just have multiple options, guys. There's nothing that we can't do in real estate. So if you guys have properties in Houston, you need help moving, you need help selling, just let us know. But yeah, we got this bad boy sold for him at asking. 2 days on the market, guys. I'm really good at what I do. I don't mean to brag, but I'm really good at what I do. So because I was coming to this side of town, we close in 2 days. I was like, let me go ahead and pick up my partner's sign. Let me get my lockbox because I'm tired of losing those. And then I'm only 15 minutes away from the other Baytown property. So yeah, we're gonna keep it moving, but another successful property that we sold, guys. We have arrived to our next stop of the day. We are in Baytown, Texas. So you guys see the dump. My roofers are up here getting things taken care of. And I want to talk to you guys about what was supposed to be an easy flip, right? Every time I say that, it never goes as planned, right? And so many things have went wrong on this deal, and we're almost to the finish line. We close in 2 days, just like the other property. But I'm gonna give you guys a walkthrough. I'm gonna talk about the numbers, and I'm just gonna talk about the things that went wrong and maybe how you can protect yourself from these type of situations, because this is just part of the game, guys. Like, you make a plan and then shit happens, and then you adjust that plan, and then sometimes more shit happens, and then we just try to get it to the finish line and move on, guys. Make what money we can, because we are still going to make a little bit of money, just not nearly as much as we thought. But let's go take a walk through, and then we'll get into the numbers and all the bullshit that's happened on this deal. So we got all our materials delivered this morning for the new roof, because that's essentially what we're having to do here, is put on a completely new roof right before closing. But let's take a look at the inside. All right, so let me give you guys a walkthrough, right? This home is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. Now, one of the reasons that I liked it is when I bought this home, they had marketed it as a 3-2, right? Because this wholesaler was out of state, they just didn't verify information, which, you know, sucks for them, but it worked out for us. So I saw a lot of value in this home. And let's talk about some of the repairs. So in here, you know, we did countertops, and then we retiled the shower. I'm gonna show you guys a picture of what it looked like before. It was one of those older people, like, built-in spa bathtubs. It just didn't meet the buyers that we're looking to sell to, right? So we spent money on this. We retiled the floor in here, and then we go to the master back here. And another thing that we spent money on was redoing this bathroom, right? Because we want to spend money on our kitchens and our bathrooms. So we retiled the floors, retiled our shower, and then we matched the countertops to that in the kitchen, because the countertops were not matching at the time. They were different in the bathroom. Now, like I said, originally this was marketed as a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So they only had 1, 2, 3 bedrooms, but in reality, we had another bedroom back here as well, right? We already had a closet and everything. Now, when I bought this property, it looks almost identical to how it looked when I purchased it. I'm gonna put a picture here for you guys to see, but essentially the whole house was tiled throughout. The cabinets were in really good condition. We just touched up some paint. It already had these countertops. We just added some cabinet pulls, updated the hinges, and put some new faucets. Now, the only thing that I planned on spending money on was foundation. On this side of the house and around the exterior and in the master, there was just areas that sloped really bad. So when I bought the home, I was like, oh, I'm only gonna have to do a little bit of foundation. The house was already painted. It already had tile throughout. We had an extra bedroom, right? So I was like, oh, this is gonna be an easy flip. And that's where I got it all wrong. So let's go to the back and talk about some of the problems that occurred. Now, when I purchased this home, like I said, someone was living here. I actually had to do a 2-week lease back, but it was from a wholesaler out of town, right? So we were trying to coordinate everything. The lady had just went through a divorce, so we had to get her husband to sign off. And when I walked the property, I just had to be in and out, right? And I knew she needed to stay a couple weeks. Well, me being a bigger guy, I don't really do attics. I am 6'4", 300 plus pounds. Me and attics don't go good together. I've fell through a few ceilings, so I'm just never trying to cause damage. I'm just trying to be in and out, especially when there are tenants here. So I wasn't able to do a thorough inspection like I normally would like to. And because of that, a few things were missed, some that we couldn't see and some that we could have seen if I would have just crawled my big ass in the attic, right? So first things first that we missed was the plumbing. So anytime that we buy a home, we do what is called a hydrostatic test. If you're flipping, I highly recommend it. And I would say do it before you even buy the home, but we always do it once we purchase the home. And I just budget extra in my budget for unseens, right? And it's rare that it ever happens, but this home was built in 1956, I do believe. So you guys can imagine we had all original plumbing underneath the house. Well, when we went to do a hydrostatic test, we realized that there was a leak somewhere throughout. Well, you guys see this big beautiful tree here, and there's one in the front, which is partially why we had foundation issues. But because the home had sat and they probably never had the plumbing tested, guess what? We got to replace the plumbing. So we had to redo the entire plumbing throughout the property, which is a great selling point for new buyers, right? But when it comes to your budget, you know, it costs us an additional $5,000, right? So that was the first thing that happened on this property. But as you guys can see, my guys are up here on the roof, right? Why are we on the roof if we only had to do the plumbing, right? Well, we go to sell the home, we go through inspection, and in inspection, we find out that at some point, of course, the sellers didn't tell us about this, at some point, there was a small house fire in the attic. And from the ground, I could tell that a couple of the shingles, they look discolored, but in reality, I thought it was just the shading from the tree and how the shadow looked on it. Well, come to find out, it was because of house fire. Now, the new buyers weren't that concerned from the house fire because it looks like they did repair it pretty well, right? And I say pretty well because they still left some boards that were charred. They may have been in good standing, but they were still charred. They had black soot on it, and the buyers didn't feel comfortable with it, right? So one of the things that we negotiated was a completely new roof, which a new roof isn't necessarily that expensive depending on the house, but when you have to rip everything off and reframe it, and as you guys can see from the aerial view, it's gonna cost a lot more money. So this roof, all in all, is gonna end up costing me right under $8,000, right? So that's, you know, 8,000, the 5,000, right? That's 13,000 extra dollars that just got stripped out of my profit. Now, also, when I went to list the home, we sat on the market for a few months. So just all these factors just started really eating into our profit. And we're still gonna walk away with right around $17,000, but I thought we were gonna make $30,000, right? And so it is what it is. This is another reason why we don't typically buy homes older than 1970, but because we got such a good deal on it, I was like, oh, it makes sense. All right. See what I mean, guys? And that is exactly why I do not do attics. So now I'm gonna have to pay to have somebody come fix that. But anyways, we're here. I'm not gonna move around too much because I'm way too fucking big to be up here. But you guys can see, we're having to reframe the entire structure here, get a lot of these old burnt remnants gone, and yeah, just replace the whole new roof. All right, so let's talk about numbers, guys. We picked this property up for $135,000. Now, originally, like I said, I had planned to put around $15,000 to $20,000 max. All in all, I'll end up putting right under $35,000 into this house. Once again, an easy flip, right? But one thing that I will say about flipping houses is when these big issues come up, just go ahead and address them, right? Because if it's one problem with a buyer, it's gonna be another problem with another buyer. So if you can keep the buyer on the line and just do what they're asking, especially in this market, and just have a quicker cash conversion cycle, right? Because like I said, we bought it for $135,000. We ended up putting right at, we'll just say $35,000 into it, but then like the holding costs, we just hit like 6.5 months, right? So I'm gonna have to pay an extension fee, and like all these things add up. And what was supposed to be a $30,000 to $35,000 net profit deal, like I said, we'll end up landing somewhere between $17,000 and $19,000 net profit, right? But that's just a reality of the game, right? We're able to get it off the books. I have another flip that's like 15 minutes away from here that I'm about to take you guys to that is a way better deal, but of course it came with its own set of problems as well. But let's go take a look at that one and talk about that deal. Of course, we're in Baytown, so I have to make a pit stop at Buc-ee's. I haven't had lunch yet, so let's run in here, grab some stuff, and then we'll head over to the last property. So this is the eviction house. Like I said, this was a gentleman who had gotten sick, and then his girl was living here. She didn't want to help him. She was just living for free. They had a bunch of tax debt, so the wholesaler got it under contract. So as you guys can see though, it is a newer build home. This house was built in the early 2000s, and the numbers on this house are incredible. I'll talk about that at the end, but as you guys can see, overall decent layout, nice size kitchen. Now, what I'm gonna be doing in here is I'm actually gonna be getting rid of all this flooring. Now, yes, I could save it, but I wanna create the nicest product for what is selling right now. And I believe that not only are we gonna have, number one, the nicest product, but number two, we're gonna have the cheapest home, which is ideal in this market. So we're ripping out these countertops. As you can see, my tri-shot guys already got this done. They're gonna demo the rest of this. My countertop guy actually already came this morning to measure everything. Appliances are in good condition. They're, yes, a little bit dirty, but we're gonna get those cleaned up. We have a refrigerator. We're gonna repaint the cabinets, get a new dishwasher, new floors. We're gonna paint throughout the entire house, minus the ceilings, because they're in really good condition and I'm trying to save money. And then upstairs here, this house is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. So we got 1 bedroom here, 1 bedroom here. We have another bedroom here, guest bathroom. We're gonna paint the cabinets, change this countertop, just get a deep clean on this guest shower. And initially I was gonna replace it, but I decided to do new flooring throughout. I think it'll be better money spent. This is the master, huge master. And then in here, we're gonna be demoing all this floor, the countertops. We're gonna paint the cabinets. I'm gonna do a huge backlit mirror, as you guys know that I like to do. And then we're gonna be ripping all this out and do a beautiful tiled up shower all the way to the ceiling. So it's gonna turn out really, really good. I'm pretty excited about this project. Now let's go talk about the numbers. All right, guys, so let's talk about numbers. So once again, we're in Baytown. This is a really solid area. A lot of new builds are coming up, and this neighborhood, like I said, was built in the early 2000s. But we picked this home up from a wholesaler, actually from San Antonio, a guy that I met through social media. This is why I do so much content. And they wholesaled it to me for $135,000. So that's how much I purchased it for. And then I plan on putting around $20,000 into this home. And comps in this neighborhood are going all the way up to $275,000. There's a few for $270,000, and a lot of those are just builder grade from when the home was first built, which isn't bad. But once again, I wanted to spend a little bit more money, make a nicer product, and then I'm actually going to list it for around $260,000. So not only will I have a better product, but I'll be at a cheaper price. So hopefully we can get this thing sold very quickly and keep that cash conversion cycle going. But this situation was just different. This was a gentleman who had gotten sick, and he had a girlfriend at the time, and he actually had to move in with his mom and was unable to pay the bills. They got behind on taxes, which is how the wholesaler found them. And then she was just living here rent free for like a year or two. And then eventually, you know, the reason we had to buy it sight unseen is because she was living here. Well, I guess when we sent the eviction notice, she actually moved out, because about a week ago, we won the eviction. We went to court. They didn't show up. They didn't appeal, so we were good to go. But the city was backed up on the writ, meaning that that's when they come take possession of the property. But because the city was backed up, because we've had a lot of rain, rain, I was unable to get inside. So last week I actually was on this side of town and it was a weekend. So I was like, hey, let me go take a look at the property. So I talked to all my neighbors. They said they hadn't seen anybody in the home for a couple weeks. Our eviction notice was still on the door. So I actually broke into the house, and I'm gonna show you guys how I got into the property right here. I couldn't break in the normal way, so we're gonna get a little extra today. And I thought it would be a really good opportunity just to make a video, because I knew that video would go viral, and I was correct. It has around 300,000 views on TikTok, and I got about another 30,000 on Instagram, which ended up bringing me 4 new leads. So once again, guys, you should be doing social media all the time, every day. Like today alone, I've filmed 6 different reels and I'm not even done. But point being is, social media, good deals. We're gonna make a lot of money, and it's an easy deal. That's the main point. These are the type of houses that I'm trying to flip this year and make money, where they take less work, less time. Now, thank God she didn't damage the property, and the house was just as good, if not better than anticipated. But I appreciate you guys hanging out with me for today. If you haven't already, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, because I'm dropping weekly videos. Until next time, guys, peace.